Spectre Divide, Shroud's new FPS game. Well, a lot of people say it's Shroud's new FPS game, but it's actually Mountaintop Studios that has developed it. So can we get a round of applause and thank you Mountaintop Studios for your work. A quick disclaimer before we get into the nitty and gritty of Spectre Divide. I'm a casual player and not by any means a pro, and I am not that deeply rooted into the esports scene. So if you're looking for the insight of a pro player from CSGO or Valorant or any other big tactical shooter, I am not the guy. I'm a casual player. And one last disclaimer, this game is in closed beta. It is not the final or full release of the game, so expect changes. With that aside, let's talk about Spectre Divide. Now, in case it wasn't obvious enough, Spectre Divide's main selling point that separates it from other tactical shooters is the fact that you have 2 lives. Aside from the 2 lives, there are a few other things that separate Spectre Divide from other games within the genre. Some other notable features of the game is that you're running 3v3s, not the usual 5v5. So that is an insane difference, an insane transition if you're coming from a game like CSGO or Valorant. Aiming down sights is strongly encouraged in a lot of the gunfights, and personally it was a little bit to get used to aiming down sights. And one other thing that isn't particularly large but does separate it from other games is you can customize your character. Just cuz, why not? Now, Spectre Divide does follow the same formula as the other tactical shooters genre, and rounds will typically play the same. Attackers will go plant a bomb or eliminate all the defenders to win, while defenders will either defuse the bomb or defeat all the attackers to win. With all the boring and basic stuff out of the way, let's talk about the actual gameplay. Shooting in this game feels good and refined, and it's often enjoyable when you get into a gunfight. Gunplay feels satisfying, but it does take getting used to since most of the time you are taking fights while ADS'd. The reason you ADS during most of the fights is because you can move and shoot with precise precision, so your bullet will always land where your crosshair is. Now you guys might be curious about hip firing. Well, is hip firing viable? Is it something I can use often or a lot in gunfights? And unfortunately, the answer is a resounding no. I did not find myself hip firing very often, and when I did, it was either in front of somebody's face, literally my gun touching their forehead, or if they're maybe mid-range 15 to 20 meters out. And that very well may be a turnoff to a lot of people who are looking to get into the game from other tactical shooters that are very popular, like Valorant and CSGO, where hip firing is the main way you go about gunfighting. Aside from the gunplay, there is utility, of course, in a tactical shooter, as utility is a much needed team-based factor or for good solo plays. Utility comes in the form of sponsors, and sponsors act as like kits or classes that will give your characters equipment. These kits help determine your playstyle and how you will take gunfights and fight as a team. Some sponsors may promote aggression, while other sponsors will promote looking out for information. Overall, the sponsors are nothing crazy and are easy to grasp as a concept, so let's move on to the main selling point of Spectre Divide, the 2 bodies or the duality system. Now, most people would think, including me, when I first saw the gameplay, that the duality system or having 2 bodies would be really hard to grasp and get used to. Surprisingly, getting into the game, it was easy to get into and get used to having 2 bodies or 2 lives. It wasn't hard to grasp, and you did not have to use a whole lot of brain power to think about where you were putting your body. And I think having 2 bodies is a very unique concept that I would actually genuinely never even think about if I were to ever make a tactical shooter. So I do think it's a very unique twist on the game. It feels smooth swapping from one body to the next, and Mountaintop Studios does an excellent job of making the concept easy to grasp while also making it clear that there is a skill ceiling where players can become very skilled at placing their bodies for tactical positions and plays. The maps take the 2 bodies into consideration, making spots where you can place your other body safely. Or if you want to put them at a high vantage point, you could also do that, and the map welcomes that. The game executes the concept of having 2 bodies very well and enables players to have creative freedom and make out plays. Although having 2 bodies is a nice and creative concept and is executed extremely well, unfortunately, it brings its own problems to the game. And here we arrive to a few flaws in the game that just really prevent it from standing out. First off, having 2 bodies means buying 2 weapons. And when I first started the game and got into my first rounds of Spectre Divide, the shop was very overwhelming. You're not buying a gun for just one person now, like you are in other games. You are buying 2 guns for 2 different people. And these 2 guns are not the same across bodies, they're different. For example, one body could have a sniper, let's say, and the second body could have an SMG. And having 2 different guns means 2 different situations. Ideally, you would want a sniper for a long range position, while for an SMG, you would want it for close quarters. So now you have to think of 2 possible situations where those are favorable. And we're not done yet. Your character also has those sponsors. So now you have to also carefully consider what 2 guns you're gonna have on 2 bodies, but also what utility you want.
But Scoochy, or Scoosh, or whatever her name is a shop really that important? I mean, you just buy your guns, you go for the quick buy, you get a little bit whatever utility you can, maybe armor if you feel like it, and you just go on your way.
You could simplify like that, and it would totally work. I am not the fun police, so if you want to go do that, go ahead and do that. But the shop determines how you play that round. It determines what util you're able to use in fights with your team or by yourself, and it determines what positions you take. The shop is something that's glanced over because it's seen often in tactical shooters, but people don't know the importance of it. A good shop in a tactical shooter is easily readable and easily navigatable from the player's perspective. Personally, I think this is going to be hard for newer players to get into Spectre Divide when this game comes out to full release, and I think it might drive other players away. The next topic I'm going to talk about is not really a major flaw, it's more like an honorable mention. There are places called reveal areas, and these reveal areas only apply to defenders. Basically, they're walls or spaces you cannot get past as a defender for the first 40 seconds of a round. Keep in mind, rounds last around 2 minutes, so for the first 40 seconds of those 2 minutes, you are not allowed to push into these spaces without being revealed to every attacker on the other team where you are if you are in those spaces. I'm saying your silhouette is seen through walls if you go within these areas within the first 40 seconds. And I feel like it is not fair to restrict aggressive movement from defenders like that. I think that's worth the risk of being an attacker is taking space swiftly and smoothly and efficiently while also having to consider flanks in the first 40 seconds. But maybe my take on the reveal areas is shallow, and if there is a better explanation for this, I would love to hear it down in the comments. The last 2 points might be debatable, but this final point I'm about to make about the game, I think is its main issue and really stands out. It is the one that's clearest to me, and that point being this game is going through an identity crisis. It feels like a kid going through puberty. It's like trying to find its own individuality, but is missing the mark. There is clear inspiration from other games. I've seen a lot of people call this a Valorant clone or a CSGO X Borderlands game, and I don't think it's fair to call it that. It is trying to make its own mark on the tactical shooter genre. It's just missing it. The gunplay is cool and satisfying, and I like the twist of being able to move while ADS. That is not something we've seen before, at least in the same realm as Valorant and CSGO. The abilities are cool and unique, but that's about it. The gunplay is satisfying and the abilities are cool. If you want cool abilities, you play Valorant. If you want satisfying gunplay, you go to CS. You might have noticed that throughout the entire video, I have compared this game a lot to CSGO and Valorant, and that's just because that's how it is. Valorant and CSGO are the big 2 games in the tactical shooter genre, and they are the major competitors of this game. Now you might be wondering about the 2 lives, and personally I genuinely do not think the 2 lives concept is a good enough selling point that makes it stand out that much from other games. The 2 lives is a cool gimmick, but that's all it is a cool gimmick. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is nothing is defining this game. Nothing stands out. You would think the 2 lives defines this game and makes it stand out, but in reality, it really doesn't. I could see people trying this for a few hours and then going back to whatever game they were playing originally. Unfortunately, the game industry is not friendly, and especially in the tactical shooter genre, it is very competitive with big games like CSGO and Valorant. You really have to make your mark on the genre, and you really have to do some extraordinary things to stand out and compete, and this game just doesn't do that. Overall, this video is completely my opinion. If you have access to the game, or whenever the game comes out in full release, I think you should give it a try. Again, the game is in closed beta, so I can't be extremely harsh on it, but with the path it's going down, I really do not see it flourishing. However, only time will tell. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe. and I'll see you guys next time.